Hello, my name is Kendall Clark. I am a first-year civil engineering student at Florida A&M University. I'm here to compare two very different sources that talk about the same topic, the story of Dr. Donroe R. Green Jr. Since I was a young child, I've heard about my great-grandfather and how he was the first black doctor in Athens. I then asked my father and my aunt if there were any written documents about my great-grandfather. Fortunately, he was able to find this article. In an article published by Dr. Walton Allen titled Two Inseparable and Undisputed Northeast Georgia Legends, Allen tells the story of the great and hardworking lives of Dr. Donroe R. Green Jr., the first black doctor to serve on the staff of St. Mary's Hospital, his wife Marian Kathleen, and their family. Dr. Green and Mrs. Kathleen just so happened to be my great-grandparents on my father's side. The article also mentions their children, Kayrell, my grandmother, Harriet, Elizabeth, Donroe III, Washington, Volusia, and Marjorie. Dr. Green was born in 1908. He graduated from Meharry Medical College in 1942. He was also honorably discharged from the military as a medical doctor and an officer in 1946. He became the first black doctor to serve at St. Mary's Hospital in 1957. During Dr. Green's time in the Army, the political climate was very tense due to the segregation against blacks in America. It is impressive that he was able to attain the rank of officer. Dr. Allen's article was very useful during this time period because it told the story of yet another African American man who made a mark on his community despite the racial climate at the time. The article represents the lack of technology during the time that it was published because now most articles can be found online. The activities captured include Dr. Green becoming the first black doctor to serve on the staff of St. Mary's Hospital and the integration of an all-white school in the Clark County School District. The limitation of an only paper article is that paper is not easily recovered if it is lost or destroyed. This means that this piece of history can be taken out of this world in an instant. Next, I will talk about an online article that was published in 2021. An online article published on June 17, 2021 by Lily Kirsch, titled Remembering the Lives of Brooklyn Cemetery, Kirsch tells the stories of multiple patrons of the Brooklyn Cemetery who made a lasting impact in their community. My great-grandfather, Dr. Donroe R. Green, was one of the patrons he talked about in this article. I chose this source because, unfortunately, I could only find one article or website that gave real information about him and his family. At the time, both World War II and segregation were still going on. The article provides deeper insight on the status of racial segregation in the Army and how rare it was for African Americans to be appointed to such high positions in the military. This article was not published during the time of these events, but when comparing the lack of technology when these events were going on versus the technology used to write and publish this article, it shows how much the way we provide and look for information has changed over the years. The activities captured in this article include Green being the first black doctor at St. Mary's Hospital, the opening of the Susan Medical Center, the first maternity ward for African Americans in Athens, and the integration of an all-white school in Clark County. Truthfully, there are no limitations to the use of a reliable online source. Between these two types of sources, there are multiple differences, but various use similarities, besides the topic of discussion for both articles. For example, both articles talk about the story of Dr. Donroe R. Green Jr. However, the personal source I selected gives a more detailed account of Dr. Green's story, while the online article talks about the multiple people in the Brooklyn Cemetery and doesn't go into as much depth about Dr. Green. Another difference between these sources is the use of modern technology used for one source and the lack of technology when the other source was published. This also plays into the limitations of the sources. This is because the online article can be saved and backed up, while an old printed out article, like the one I've provided, can be lost very easily. Thank you for listening.